Hello, and this is the Ninja Legion. I am Cecil Blade.
I am P-Chan.
I am Cliff.
And I'm Spider.
And welcome to Circle of Jerks.
Somewhere there was a lightning strike.
Thank you.
Sure.
If you're unfamiliar with this program, we pick a particular topic and set about arguing about it.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
And then I judge, or whoever is the judge, but I am tonight.
Yes, our guest judge tonight is the Cliff Huxtable.
The
Theo.
Huxtable.
Rudy!
Rudy.
Jello.
So for this game, I brought y'all into this world, and I can take you out.
Oh, okay. Okay, I got you.
Just
I
like
got
being
you.
at home.
Dad?
Alright, so we're gonna...
So what is our topic this evening?
all of the questions that I'm going to ask are based... The main topic is Nintendo consoles and handhelds. So I'm going to ask things such as the first topic... Controller layout. What do you feel is the best of the Nintendo consoles?
Who you starting with?
Since we had accidents last time, I'm going to go in reverse.
Okay.
To mix it up a little bit, I'm going to start with Spider.
Okay. So I go GameCube. I think it's a much better controller. It's not as heavy. It's not as awkward as the N64 controller was. Like, for me, that third prong in the middle just completely threw me off. It had a solid layout. I felt, really good control for everything. And you use it for more than just the GameCube, which is something that none of the other controllers have. You use it for the Wii, for some of their games, and for the Virtual Console. And you also, and we're all waiting for it to be able to be used for the Wii U.
A little bit of that backwards compatibility.
Yeah.
Forwards compatibility.
Yeah.
True.
It was so good.
Yeah, that they're continuing to
working.
use it for their future
Fair
consoles.
enough. All right.
So it has that going for it that none of the other controllers have either.
Interesting.
So.
All right. Well said. Cecil.
Well, unlike Spider, I actually like the Nintendo 64 controller. Despite it having a phallic tendencies, it was a great layout. Much better improvement than the 64, or not the 64, the Super Nintendo controller. But it also introduced the Z button and the C concept, which you could argue, because I know P-Chan's going to argue me, well, Sega Genesis did that first and gave you the 6-button layout.
True.
But the Nintendo 64, not only did it actually give you the classic Super Nintendo layout that everybody was used to, but it also let you adjust to different handheld positions.
Yeah, it was versatile, I suppose.
Because you could do it, you could hold it from the left to the center for games like Turok, which used the D-pad and the analog stick. But then you could also reverse that from the center to the right for more like Mario 64. And then, of course, the introduction of Smash, you held it in classic Super Nintendo format. You still had 3 flavors of gameplay there, of controller handling.
And for Mario Party, when you really put your palm, that's what happens.
This is what happens in Mario Party.
When you
see this?
Rock the analog stick too hard.
You lose skin.
Rock the cat.
It's like you're muddling.
Yeah. Wow.
See, this is why I like the 64. I have a permanent scar. This is too much Mario Party, and I'm telling you, it's coming back.
It is.
Mario Party.
All right.
I'm gonna go ahead and go with the classic in simplicity. I'm gonna go with the Game Boy Advance SP. You took the original NES controller and you added shoulder buttons to it, and it went from being able to do a lot. It was a tremendous amount of versatility with fewer amount of buttons than, say, the N64 or the GameCube controller. It did a lot with having a D-pad, select, pause, A, B, and 2 shoulder buttons, right and left. And you could do tremendous things with it. They had Street Fighter Alpha 3, Yoshi's Party. They did a bunch of backwards compatibility with the SNES. You got a lot out of simplicity. And I find that I love the SP because you could do a lot with very little. It's what Nintendo's always done. You can get a lot out of a little.
So less is more.
Correct. And that's
So did you
why
play it with toothpicks?
No, I played it with my man hands. And it fit.
As opposed to gorilla hands.
Exactly.
Oh.
And it fit. and it did extremely well. It made me nostalgic because it was like the NES controller, but it had more going for it. without having excess buttons, or like the GameCube controller, I have to shift my fingers around, or the N64 where I have to shift my hand around. I got everything I needed right there with a mini console.
All right.
That's all I'm saying.
It's not a bad start. Okay. So this is a big one. Which system had the best game library?
Ooh.
And for that, we'll go in reverse order. I'm going to keep you talking, P-Chan. Mr. Chan.
I really want to give a throwback to the NES because that's where I started, but I'm going to give it to the SP again. I had Metroid Zero Missions, Metroid Fusion. They did back ports to the SNES with Yoshi's Island. I had Mega Man Zero. I had Advanced Wars. I had Fire Emblem. I could go on. The titles you had for the Game Boy Advance were just Game Boy Advance. I played that for many hours when I was in the military because it had titles. It's a throwback to the old era with an upgrade. I got so much more out of that than I say when I bought a GameCube. I played Twilight Princess, Melee, Mario Party, and Double Dash, which are all fantastic games. But if I were to stack it against how many titles I've purchased for a single Nintendo console, the Game Boy Advance and the SP maxes out. I had 20, 30 games for it. And they were all worth the money I spent for it. Pokemon Red, Sapphire, Pearl, Sapphire.
Diamond and Pearl were DS.
Correct. What was it?
It's Ruby, Sapphire.
Ruby and Sapphire.
Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald were the
correct
the advanced games.
And it was such a big graphical jump and technical jump from the Game Boy Color. It brought all those Nintendo kids into a new era. It was just phenomenal. And I bought so many titles for it, so many more than I did for the Wii or the GameCube. I can't say anything other than that.
All right, Cecil, what do you have to say?
It depends on your question. Does it include the Virtual Console?
No.
Then the Super Nintendo.
The actual titles that were
available,
sold for the system and meant for that actual platform. Yeah, using the hardware that it was intended to use.
Then the Super Nintendo.
Okay.
Because it was an age where it doesn't matter what the game was. It was made for the Super Nintendo or the Super Famicom, however you viewed it. If it came from Europe, you could eventually get a port over to the U.S. If it came from Japan, you got the port over. It wasn't...
I mean, they gave us Final Fantasy VI, so... yeah.
2, Evermore, Secret of Mana, friggin' Illusion of Gaia, Earthbound,
Chrono Trigger.
Yeah.
Granted, we're sounding like Square Enix whores.
No, you sound like a Square Enix.
Killer Instinct.
No, the original KI.
All of the
Maximum Carnage.
Maximum Carnage, Mega Man X, X2 and
the
X3, the
original
original Mario Kart,
Star Fox,
Super Star
As I say,
Wars,
all
Super
of the-
Empire, Super Return of the Jedi,
Yeah, all of the Mode 7 games that kind of introduced 3D to
Donkey
the masses.
Kong Country.
Donkey Kong Country was huge.
And Super Mario World, in my opinion.
Oh
the
yeah,
best Super
no,
Mario
I think
of
it,
all
I think
all
that was a
time.
very good one. Even the introduction of the FX chip, which didn't live long, but
That's what I meant, FX, yeah.
It kicked Star Fox in the high gear. I mean, but then you introduce a range of peripherals. They introduced
games only.
well, I'm talking about that.
There's
because
another category about what you're about to speak about, so you might want to hold your ammo.
Yeah, Super Nintendo.
Okay, all right.
And that's where I'm ending it.
You can see how excitedly I jumped in on that because that's my vote too. Super Nintendo's easily the best
Well,
one.
he took your spotlight, so you're gonna have to come up with different points, or different games rather that you highlight.
Well, I mean, I threw a few out there, like
did.
the Mega
Yeah.
Man X games
Yeah.
being on there. That kind of clenches it for me. Those are some of my favorite games of all time. I still go back and play those and love them. Like I'm a Mega Man fanboy, whatever.
Yeah.
But Mega Man X not only was it just a fantastic game, like gameplay wise, the soundtrack was fantastic. Same thing for Maximum Carnage. The soundtrack
Green
for
Jelly.
that,
Yeah.
the soundtrack for that game was revolutionary.
Green
You know.
Jello at the time, I think.
It was
So they had to change their name.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
God, we're old.
But no, I mean,
Yeah.
even to prove more to Aiden his point, what is the most emulator you download is the massive emulator that everyone downloads.
Usually SNEX, 9X.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
Mega Man X and then Final Fantasy 6 or
Yeah.
Yoshi's
That's
Island.
true.
I mean, I gotta hold my tongue on that one because it's going into other stuff. But even like Tiny Toon Adventures, Buster Bust Loose.
That
yeah.
was
Game
awesome.
was awesome.
Game was
so much fun.
I got so frustrated on the football level.
It was, but it was still a
It was
fun
fun
game. And all the levels offered something different. You know.
Yep.
Yeah.
It had a versatile library. Hell, I hacked my PlayStation Portable to play Super Nintendo ROMs on it.
Yeah, I mean, Super NES has single-handedly sold via emulators many different other devices.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And that's about that.
Yeah.
All right, so on to the next one. This one you can branch off on this. You can take this however you want, but I'm saying longevity, aka fun factor.
What's your order?
What's that?
Who you
Who's
going?
going first?
You know what? We haven't started with Cecil yet.
I'm going to have to throw it out there again. Super Nintendo. It can be... I can play any of the latest gens. I can play anything in the past. Because y'all know I have totes of old school systems.
Totes my goats.
Damn it. I was so ready for
And the thing is, the one that I always... Whether, I'll play TurboGrafx for a half an hour. Or I'll bust out the Sega Master System or something like that. The one you always bust out, no matter what in your retro section, is the Super Nintendo. You will always bust that out. You will always play it. And I could play it for hours on end.
Can
Still
you
to this
honestly
day.
say you've played it at least once a year, the actual hardware, since it came out?
I could say I play it once a quarter, to be
okay.
perfectly honest.
All right. So that is pretty impressive. Then we'll go with Spider.
It's tough to say because I do love Super Nintendo and it does have a lot of great games, but I feel like I've honestly spent more time on my Game Boy Advance than anything else, whether it was the original Advance or the SP.
Same hardware, yeah. As far as the
It's the
actual
same hardware. It
processing.
plays the same games, and also because you could play your original Game Boy games and your Game Boy, the color games on your SP, or even your regular Advance, is that I would just spend so much time playing those games. Even I wasn't as a Mega Man fanboy again. Like the Battle Network games, I enjoyed those. I didn't enjoy the Zero games as much. I mean, it's not for everybody, but those Pokemon, because
Right.
Pokemon fanboy. Even like the Mario games and stuff they had for it. Golden Sun.
right.
I mean, Golden Sun. Come on.
That was an awesome RPG.
Now let
It
me
was.
throw in something real quick because I didn't want to include Virtual Console in these, but if the system physically has backwards compatibility, this counts for like any of the categories I'm talking about.
Yeah, and
So
in this
like
case
you
it
mentioned,
does. Yeah, it has
right,
backwards
that's what I'm
compatibility. You can play
saying.
Game Boy games, and then you get like stuff like Final Fantasy Dawn of Souls, where you can go back and play Final Fantasy 1 and 2.
Yeah. Okay.
See,
On
that
that.
puts a different twist on it.
So you want to change your opinion, or no?
Well, I mean, I'll be the first one to admit I will yield to the Game Boy.
And what this is
Because-
with that being said, remember Super NES can play Game Boy Color games because they had
The adapter,
But
the,
that-
the
yeah,
Super Game
And that
Boy.
was one of the things I was biting my tongue on before was like the Super Game Boy, because
Yeah,
I spent so
that
much
counts
time
because
playing that.
it's not an emulator; it's a physical.
Yeah, but it's peripheral.
you're just
It is a peripheral.
yeah. I see
It
what
doesn't.
You're
It's
saying.
not a game on its own. It allows you to play other games.
I'll allow it though, for the argument. If you wanted to, I still. What's your choice?
I will yield to Game Boy. However, I was never big in the Game Boy. I had the original spinach. I had the Advanced. Now I have a 3DS. Goes to show you the gaps in my Game Boy history.
yeah.
I have none. I have had every iteration of Nintendo handheld, except with the exception of the Micro,
But
because that was bullshit.
It
it-
was.
it-
It really was.
if you really look at it, and if you go longevity and game library, I don't think the Game Boy has that extensive game library if you exclude the remakes, because that's what Game Boy is notorious to do. Take the previous console, port it to the new gen Game Boy. Take the previous console's library, port it to the new gen Game Boy.
Okay.
Not that they don't have original content. I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
But that expands that library horrendously.
Okay. Well, let's go to Peachan, and then I will actually, before we move on to this, I'll throw something else out. I'll make a point, but go ahead.
I would say as far as longevity, everyone talks about, the handhelds or the SNES. There's not a single person in here who couldn't go and plug in their NES and play it for hours.
That
I'm
depends.
gonna go with
Are you blowing or are you scrubbing?
Depends on what you're into. the NES for me is the console I always come back to. I love my Game Boy. I love my Game Boy Advance. I love the SNES, the N64. I love the GameCube. But at the end of the day, I'm plugging in my Nintendo and I'm playing Dr. Mario, Super Mario Brothers 3, Super Mario Brothers 1. I play track and field with the pad.
Duck
I
Hunt.
play Duck Hunt
Excite
with a light
Bike.
gun. Excite Bike.
Super
Paperboy.
Sprint, RC Hamper
The
X.
Ninja Turtles game that
Ninja
was
Gaiden,
impossible to get
Metal
past.
Gear,
The damn
Kirby.
Batman. There's so
Oh God,
many
Batman was tough as nails.
and see, that's my thing. Both of you gave other examples, but as far as longevity, we can plug in the Nintendo and play that for way more hours and relive our childhood than we can a Super Nintendo or a Game Boy. It's your childhood condensed into a little gray box.
Okay, then good points. When I made the category, I should have made them 2 separate questions. So we're just gonna smash this together. Pure fun factor.
Nintendo.
We'll start with you, yeah. So you're sticking with NES.
Nintendo. I mean, I can play Dr. Mario, Tetris. Tetris is you can watch it for hours. Dungeons and Dragons, which no one ever talks about because it's the most impossible game ever. There's so many games for Nintendo. It's just fun factor, and we can all sit there and go, "I know when I got that." Ninja Gaiden, most impossible game ever. We can all look at each other and go, I know when I got that game. You know when you got it, what holiday you got it, who you played it with, when you play it, what you couldn't beat. As far as fun factor and longevity, no one beats the original NES.
All right.
It is. It's like the girl you lost your virginity to. Oh, every man in the room grimaced.
Well, it's true because 20 years later, you could still plug into that, and it's still a good time. So. Thank you.
Oh,
All right, Cecil.
Wins.
On that note,
Perfect.
Flawless victory.
Oh, wow.
I don't even know how to follow up with that after something like that.
Baba Booey.
Fun factor.
Baba.
Fun factor, I'm still going to have to lean on the Super Nintendo. It gave you the range of games. I completely agree with you, reliving your childhood.
There's just different phases of childhood, though, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah, for most of us, NES was early childhood. Super NES was late childhood to early teenage years, basically. Like
Yeah.
you were
What
What
you really
was
wanted was
your
a
middle
PlayStation.
school days? Because let's face it, your middle school days.
right when you started cursing
Yeah, when you
Heavily.
started cursing,
True.
that was when you were laying the down
on
Yeah.
Mario Kart.
and
Yeah.
trying to. I'm better than you.
Mhm.
That was it. Okay,
Sure.
and Mario Kart was the staple for that
It
back in
was.
the day.
All the Street Fighters that came out
All
on
the
Super NES.
That's
Street
where I
Fighter
lived,
Turbo,
Yeah.
Killer Instinct was my
Yeah.
thing. But even like you could do that with Maximum Carnage.
Yeah.
On
I want to play
because
as Spider-Man.
that was still when points mattered.
You're right.
Yeah. All right. Spider.
I mean, like regular fun factor. Like I spent hours upon like I can't remember how many times my parents were like, "All right, time to turn the Game Boy off. Like it's time to eat dinner. Or it's time to go to bed."
Yeah,
like,
because you can hide that shit anywhere.
oh, anyway, like you're under the you're under the covers with little light peripherals so that
Oh,
you
yeah, I
can see the
remember that.
screen.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't backlit.
They have to rip
yet.
it out of your hand.
Until you got until you got your
SP.
SP when it had the first backlight.
Backlit.
Yeah,
That
And then-
changed my life.
Yeah, because you're just like, I don't need a light anymore. Sweet, and I'm also not burning through batteries.
Exactly.
Because when you're a kid, like having to rely on your parents to keep buying batteries for your handheld.
Who was it? ASCIIware and Newbie made all the accessories. They were like, it's backlit now. Half of our market share is gone because they
Yeah.
can't make
The little
lights.
fold over like magnifying light
Yeah.
screen.
Does
and
anyone
stuff.
remember stealing the AA batteries out of the
remote control?
controls?
Your
Absolutely.
Your mother's like, why doesn't it work? Go buy more batteries. I'm like, yes.
All
I was
right.
like, king of that.
but then that's all
No.
solo game at that point. Like fun factor for like playing with friends and 64.
Oh yeah,
Because you got your Mario Kart 64. You got your first Mario Party games.
Smash
you got
Brothers.
Smash Brothers.
Yep.
Star Fox full player.
Yup.
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
like when it added
God,
that
yeah.
jump to like 4-person multiplayer. Not that you couldn't do it on the Super Nintendo with a splitter,
Right.
but without having to do a splitter.
Right
like,
there is the main point.
That
Say.
right there, being able to sit down with your best friends and be able to play those games,
You
and
didn't-
just take it up to a whole
Because that
new
was
level.
bragging rights right there.
Yep.
Yeah, because you could throw down with 3
Mario
friends
Party, you got pity
and
stars.
show who had
I concede. I have to concede
Yeah.
to that.
I'll give him that.
I overall and 64.
The fact that the 4 controller ports, you didn't have to buy Super Bomberman or just order from Hudson directly to get the
Yup.
multi-tap.
Yeah.
Yeah, even NES had a multi-tap,
Even
which
PlayStation
is
was weird. 'cause you
rarely
had to get
talked
that
about, but it
weird,
did.
like,
Not many
dongle.
games used it.
Yeah,
RC
the
Pro
V,
did.
Yes, it did.
Yeah.
RC
V
Pro.
for
Yep.
PlayStation.
Yeah, PlayStation had to add that as well. It's funny how many consoles just didn't get the hint.
Exactly.
We need to have
and
these.
N64 didn't. You're just like, why
This is
haven't they
amazing.
done that ever?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, true.
All right.
I'll give it a spot.
You guys all had good arguments on that, to be honest with you. All right, next thing. This is a good one. Cost effectiveness of ownership.
cost effective
From the beginning to the end of you
the-
owning this system.
The original.
All right, so you're
cost.
starting. Everything from the get-go,
So when it was released, that price tag.
from when you bought it, let's just say. I mean, so this could be different. If you ended up picking up a system late in its lifespan but fell in love with it,
Who you're starting with?
Cecil. Well, and even still currently, you factor that in if you have to buy something now for it. I'm saying like across the board, it's a broad spectrum here.
Cost effectiveness as it's the cheapest thing to
Before
own or the most
I'd
expensive.
say let's put it this way: value,
Can
money to actual entertainment.
Can I interject real quick and say that Nintendo is the worst company when it comes to proprietary hardware? They're the kings of releasing stuff. Like, oh yeah, by the way, you have that Game Boy. We only use a specific type of jack for the audio, so you can only buy our headphones. Bye. Just putting that out there.
In the past, yes.
Well,
Right,
but
in the back out.
that was before the laws were put in place, so you really can't fault them for that
No,
yeah.
because the laws
I mean,
back
Apple
then
still does
allowed
it,
that.
so-
don't
Yeah.
hate the player, hate the game.
Yeah. Okay, so
company.
Oh God, I've spent so much money on my systems. This is so hard because I'll be the first to go. Ooh, yard sale, and
Yeah, same.
or flea market, or convention for crying out loud.
Where's Pincer when
Really,
you
are
need
you
him?
doing that? I would say
Distraction.
you're talking money spent for fun.
yeah, exactly, like the value proposition to it. So, how many? You could look at it as how many hours of gameplay, quality gameplay do you get for the money you spend? That you could look at it that way.
Oh Jesus, don't do that because Super Nintendo wins because of the RPGs. I couldn't tell you how many hundreds of hours I've spent in
Yeah, but
Square
there's
Enix land.
the cartridges could be upwards of $90. So this
back
is what
then, back in the day,
right,
yes.
that's what I'm saying.
I mean, but that also calculates when video game stores and video store rental places were around. How many times did you rent games?
Absolutely.
My God.
Yeah.
True. The Sega Genesis and Nintendo era.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I rented a game once a week.
Yep.
When Friday came, that's what I was doing.
Yep.
It could be. I mean, that's what kept your grades good. You know what I mean? You can go rent a game for a week.
True.
Absolutely. Jesus. Honestly, value for fun, it's going to have to be the NES. It is the most fun I've had, being the cheapest. The most expensive is the Super Nintendo. I couldn't tell you how much money I wasted.
It was in a time when not only were the cartridges expensive, the console itself was expensive. Like
It
was a premium.
it
price.
released at $7.99 if I remember correctly.
I don't know about that high.
I don't know. I don't know if it was that high. but it
Maybe
was
if
high
you
for the
factored like
time.
inflation now or something or like that, but I think maybe it was $3.99.
I was about to say it was about 3 or 4.
I mean, people complain about the price of consoles now.
Right.
No,
Yeah,
they
and
complain
they-
about the PlayStation 3.
No. 'Cause
Okay.
we're not
We
going to get in that
digress.
argument.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're going with NES.
I would have to say NES, yeah.
I can see what you mean because to be honest with you, like I said, maybe I shouldn't interject, but I agree with you because the cartridges never really got super high unless they were ones that were not approved by Nintendo and they became rare.
Or their gold cartridges.
Yeah, but even at retail originally, the gold cartridges weren't any different.
Oh,
right?
that's true.
True.
So, and then controller-wise, you had that rectangle from the start to the end till now. There was, you could get the NES Advantage and stuff, but I'm saying like you didn't have to go buy a different. most other systems that we've played have other option for controllers, or they've changed mid-life cycle.
Yeah.
Like you either had to or could get another. It was suggested to get another controller.
Yeah.
And there was no real, other than the light gun, which came with the deluxe set. Most
True.
people got that. There's not really any other essential peripherals you had to pick up and spend more money on.
So,
Track and
like,
field pad.
That wasn't essential.
The pad and the light gun were...
Launch price for Super Nintendo was $199.
What?
Yeah.
Really? Okay.
Wow. Okay. I am way wrong. I must have read an inflation
So
paper.
that's
It was
even.
I was
inflation.
gonna say that has to be inflation
But
paper.
their cartridges were really expensive.
Yeah, the
Oh,
cartridges
yeah.
were
Not
very
Neo Geo
expensive.
expensive.
You had
but-
cartridges that topped
They were-
100.
Yeah.
That and then N64 came out and like doubled that.
I
I remember
some of them.
Imports.
Right.
Yeah,
All right. So, Spider.
Spider. It's hard to say because back in like the NES and Super Nintendo days, I wasn't paying for my gaming. My parents were. So like that was all free for me essentially. So like any Nintendo game I played back then, any Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, like I didn't pay for the console.
I
I'm
guess-
with you there. I didn't rent the games, but I looked at it as
Like
I
how
was-
much money was spent.
how much
in
money
it.
was spent in
Yeah,
it.
by either you or someone else, but like for whoever was spending their money for quality
for
and
that.
entertainment.
You had to hear about it.
Yeah. Cost of ownership.
to earn it.
It's like with
Course.
vehicles when
Oh,
now
yeah,
they have that
grades.
actual calculation of cost of ownership.
Yeah.
Is basically what.
Cost of
That's kind of where I'm getting at here. Yeah.
You see, it's tough.
It really is hard to say.
Got to have some hard questions. They can't all be
Yeah,
softballs.
yeah.
Oh.
True.
I as much as I'd love to say Super Nintendo, I can't because there were way too many times where I'd get pissed and break a Super Nintendo controller and have to get a replacement. Like I'd smash them against the wall
wanna
or
say,
rip the cable out of them or
Am
rip
I
them
the
out of the console.
am I the only one that actually snapped it in half?
Yeah, probably.
My shoulder buttons always caved in towards the center.
Yeah.
Like they would
Yeah.
like instead of click,
Yeah.
they would just rock inward. The spring would give out basically, but yeah.
I'm gonna have to go back to the Game Boy Advance on this one. Well, the
Okay.
SP in particular,
The
because
SP,
that was
okay.
when you had to stop spending money on batteries.
On lights and batteries. Yeah.
When you could just plug in, charge it, and
Charge.
go.
Well-
That lithium ion saved a lot of friendships.
That is true. Although the older systems, if your parents were nice enough and they actually saw through the battery scam, you could
But-
get AC adapter.
That's
Yeah.
true. And
I
I
AC adapter.
I had
wall
one-
chargers.
wall chargers and
Pelican made
battery
it.
packs.
Yeah.
Pelican made it, and I had it
So
for
you
the
could, but I know what
Advance.
you mean. Is by default it came with a charger. Like,
By default, it
and
came
an
with that
internal
charger.
battery.
Yeah,
Yep.
with the internal battery and the backlighting.
yeah.
And just I loved the games that I got for it, and I spent hours and hours and hours and hours playing that. And
Okay.
that definitely. And the games weren't as expensive
True.
for the Game Boy.
You're looking maybe max
29.
50. Well, if it was like a AAA
Yeah.
title, brand
Yeah,
new,
maybe.
but
I think the
usually
most I ever
29 to
paid for
39.
was like
Yeah.
39.
yeah.
Yeah, about where like 3DS games end
Mm-hmm.
up now. Well, even like less than that. More like where DS games were.
Yeah.
Where they're like $30 to $35, maybe 40 for a high end.
Mhm.
So yeah, I'd have to go with the Game Boy Advance on that
Okay.
one.
I'll jump in and say the Game Boy Advance SP was mine because when I was in the Army, I had a black, a blue, red, a silver. It was fairly cheap. I could have a different one, and I would go out every paycheck and get a different game. Like I said, Golden Sun.
You do realize they're Game Boy consoles, not Pokemon.
Shut up.
Gotta catch 'em
Like they were
Pokemon.
cost effective, and it was so cheap. Even on my Army salary, I could go and buy a game a week, and I would really go out and buy a game a week.
Yeah.
And it was fantastic. It wasn't so expensive that I was spending an exorbitant amount of money, and it worked out for me. It's like, oh, you know, what do I want to get this week? Fire Emblem. And next week I'm like, I haven't even beat that yet, but there's a new X-Men game out, and I could pay for it. It's $29. It was effective, and it was perfect.
All right.
Perfect.
What?
I just realized that when we were talking about NES, we never mentioned Turtles 2.
Turtle.
Oh, wow, we
yeah,
never did.
That's true.
Wow.
That was a,
That's all. That
yeah.
that just occurred to me. I was
Right.
like, we never mentioned Turtles 2. That game was amazing.
It was. Turtles 1 was
Awful.
All right.
a
It
learning
was-
experience.
Yeah.
Anyway,
So let's do a little halfway tally here, so I can give you guys a little guide of where you're at. You know, see how much harder you have to try.
Roll
So
me
we're,
out.
we're
Lord.
almost 30 minutes even. So we're assuming this was going to take about an hour. So let's.
Oh, okay.
That's what I was assuming it was going to be. So right now we have P-Chan with 5.5.
5.5.
Yep, I'm going with 0.5s. Cecil has 6.5.
Uh-oh.
And Spider has also 6.5. So this is a tight race.
Yeah. Black man's in the back of the bus.
I didn't agree with
Rosa
your controller
Parks.
layout. I got to be honest. That lost you some points.
Uh,
They made stronger arguments for it. Okay. All right. So after halftime, there, the next one.
Should we play the ESPN or Fox music?
Can't do that. We're gonna get sued.
Yeah, you can. I'll get copyright flagged for
Yeah.
this. Thanks.
Me just doing that noise.
wah, wah.
All right. So since we kind of touched on it prior, this is gonna be a good one. Best peripheral. So like, this isn't the actual console anymore. I'm saying name your best Nintendo. Doesn't have to be. It's not first party. So any wild peripheral you've ever had for
So
a
like
Nintendo
Mad
console.
Catz, Pelican, anything.
Anything.
Who you starting with?
Rock paper scissors right now. Three-way showdown.
1, 2, 3, shoot.
Yes,
On
on
shoot,
shoot,
three,
and I'll
shoot.
call it.
Okay.
Gotta be out here.
Yeah.
Put them out. 1, 2, 3, shoot.
Cecil.
He just tore that up.
Sparkle.
So you get to actually pick who goes first.
Oh, I do.
Yeah. Do you want time to think, or you want to head it off? You want
No,
to make a
no, it'll
strong
be
ass
Spider.
point?
Huh?
Okay.
Spider.
That'll be Spider.
Right. That's easy. I know exactly what it
And
is.
it'll loop around then, so it's gonna go to P-Chan.
Super Game Boy. Without question.
Pretty
Super,
strong. That's pretty
Super
strong.
Game Boy. The fact that I can sit there and plug my Pokemon game into the Super Game Boy, plug it in my Super NES, and just sit there on my TV and play Pokemon instead of having to spend the batteries and watch the little tiny green
ridiculous,
screen
yeah.
of my original Game Boy, without doubt.
And it's
Super
still
Game
pretty
Boy.
highly sought after today, from what
It
I
really
understand.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
So-
people still go for those to be able to play your old
Yeah.
handheld games on that, the old Super Mario World or Super Mario Land.
Land.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Super
6
Mario
points.
Land. Yep, Super Mario Land 2.
Wario got introduced.
Yeah,
All right. Fair
Super
enough.
Game Boy.
I'll say the original NES pad. It had track and field because it was the original. Honestly, the fitness. I mean, it was the first fitness pad you could do at your home. I mean, you could do the triathlon, hurdles.
You're thinking what I'm thinking, aren't you?
Maybe.
Oh, we can't say that.
So confused. But yeah, the Nintendo
Offense.
The pad was fantastic for me as a kid because you were actually active. It was like the Wii before the Wii came out in 1989. So that's what I enjoyed.
Okay.
Yeah, no, very good. You're all missing the best peripheral of them all.
If you say the Virtual Boy, so help me God.
That's a system. That's
That
not
is
a
a
system.
No.
That is a system.
Depending
No.
on who you speak to.
The one we all wrote down codes for.
Oh,
The
yes.
Game Genie.
He just.
The Game Genie was in cross platforms. You could cheat on any game.
Yup.
You could do whatever you wanted. The only
Yeah.
downfall to the Game Genie was if you put in the wrong code to the RPGs, you raced your game.
Yeah.
Let me tell you a little story real quick, a little side note. When Game Genie came out, and I saw it in Game Pro and Nintendo Power and EGM, I was like, so it was like that meme where it's like, so you're telling me that I thought I could put straight up Sonic in Mario. Like I thought I thought I could just mix up anything I wanted. I didn't know how that was possible, but I thought it was like, I was like, oh, so I can just put Mega Man and Street Fighter now? Oh, I'm buying this.
I can do whatever I want with the game.
Years later,
That is
Marvel vs.
not
Capcom.
Right.
Exactly.
But I just want to say that it crushed my spirit. I was like, I got this code book, and I'm like, I got extra lives. I mean, that's cool and all,
Yeah.
but I thought I could do something really wild with this.
Mm-hmm.
But it didn't happen.
And you
It
know
didn't
what?
happen.
Everybody.
It was still awesome,
The thing
though.
is, I didn't know at the time when you got Game Genie, because Game Genie floored me as a kid. You go, how are they interfering with the game on the hardware with another piece of hardware?
Yeah.
And the codes you enter were memory hacks
Yeah.
for the game. That's all you were doing.
Yeah.
Phenomenal. Got me into programming and everything else.
Every code
Yeah.
monkey on the planet was like, that's what I want to do with my life.
It was all hex based,
that-
basically.
It
right?
was
all
hex, yeah.
That being said, I never owned a Game Genie.
No.
Really?
I never had one until I got a Game Shark.
I was gonna say, what about Game
Yeah,
Shark?
I had a
Game Shark.
Game Shark for I want to say my Game Boy Advance. and my and then for
got a-
PlayStation, but I never had a Game Genie for my NES or Super Nintendo.
For my
And even back then, you had like Konami code where you didn't
wow,
even need to
yeah,
have that. You
true.
could
True.
just got up, down, left, right, A, B.
For my
Start.
8th birthday, my mother took me to get Ninja Turtles 3 for the NES, and they were sold out. So the guy sold us a Game Genie. Changed my life.
That's a weird upsell, but okay.
Yeah. He's like, oh, the game's not here. You want Game Genie? And I was like, this is stupid. Got home, I was like, wait, I can moonwalk with Mario and Super Mario Bros. 3? I'm like, oh yeah, this is amazing.
Worth the money.
Yeah, completely worth it.
All right, that was a good one. So let's see. I can't wait for these arguments. Hardware reliability.
Wow.
I should have had one more. So, what was the most unreliable hardware?
Yeah.
But all right, so most reliable.
We're arguing.
We're gonna start
in favor.
with Spider.
Start 2 in a row. That's a tough call. That's a tough one.
I don't think it is because I've got
I-
I've got a pretty
I
good
don't
answer in
think
my
it
head
is either.
if I was doing this.
No.
Because there are a lot of
It's
ones that
fairly
you are
easy.
immediately disqualified if you think about
Yeah.
certain
Yeah.
factors.
NES is
Of course,
out.
that's the
Super
easiest one.
NES is out.
Not really.
I had issues with my Super NES.
Not many did.
Not really,
In fact, I still have my original one. It still runs.
I mean, I guess I'm gonna have to throw to the SP again with that. I never had any issues with mine, whether it was charging or backlighting and stuff. And I know other people did, but it was never an issue that I had. Never had issues with my backlighting not working. Never had issues with my battery not taking a charge anymore.
So for total durability, though,
Oh yeah, I could
and
drop that.
durability, reliability. Same,
Oh yeah,
same thing.
because
That's what I meant.
like my SP, like I could drop that shit. Sorry, I hey, beep, hey, I could drop it and I never had to worry about it breaking or
So
anything
even with
like
the
that.
hinge.
Even with the hinge, I never.
Okay.
Yeah, never had any difficulty with that. Never had to like prop the hinge so that it wouldn't,
Yeah.
fall open or fall closed or anything like that.
All right. Cecil.
GameCube. That is the end all of the argument. No more cartridges. No more misfeeds. No more corruption. All CD based.
And yet
4
you could
ports.
scratch the disc.
This is what I was thinking. Is yes, almost all the disc-based ones should by default have a tick mark against them
Yeah, you
because
can
the
scratch
disc
a
can be
disc.
easily scratched and unrepairable.
Just saying.
But in
No,
that,
no.
in that
Game
argument,
Doctor.
isn't not even with Game Doctor. That's a software issue, not a
Yeah,
hardware
not
issue.
a hardware issue. I agree with him. That is the software you are loading into the hardware.
Oh, I guess you might have a point
Okay.
there.
Most reliable. I couldn't tell you how many times that GameCube got yanked off the shelf because someone at Mario Party got pissed
Oh,
off.
I'll agree with that. That box was
Okay.
a tough SOB.
Yeah.
To freaking we've all broken controllers.
Yep.
No lie. Have you ever broken a GameCube controller?
Nope.
Even a Wavebird, when you could actually freaking punt it to the
Yeah,
ground.
Wavebird is strong.
Never
Yeah.
had a Wavebird.
Wavebird was strong.
I always had
strong.
cords.
By
Which, by the way, that could have been up there on the peripheral list easily. Wavebird is fantastic. All right, side note.
Wireless.
no, hands down, the GameCube is the toughest Nintendo product they've ever made. Besides the Virtual Boy. No.
I was just about to say, I punched it, kicked it, punted it, and pushed it down. The Virtual Boy's never broken.
Yeah.
Even if we wanted it to.
Exactly.
All right,
It's like
P-Chan,
Chucky.
what say you?
I'd have to go with the Game Boy Advance SP. I mean, I've dropped the thing. I've had it in I've taken it up when I was in the Army in a combat. I've washed the cartridges.
Did you take out an enemy with it?
Not that I
Did
can
it stop a bullet?
Not that I can tell you.
Oh.
But I've washed it, put
Field
it in
test.
dirt, water, blew it out, put it back in the
sounds
SP,
hot.
and it worked fine. And it was magical.
Sorry. Okay. I tried to go through a whole episode without any innuendo, and I couldn't do it.
All right, Moxie.
The SP,
Okay.
it was durable.
All right, SP.
What's in your combat sack? An SP.
Ooh. All right. So, let's see. Most innovative.
You have to define that a little bit, I guess.
The console that brought the most innovation to the industry. during its lifespan.
Who are you starting with?
We haven't started with Cecil in a while.
Nintendo 64.
Patient and longer.
Feeling real ethnic over here.
Nintendo 64. By far the first with 4-port controllers. The first hardware that you could actually take out the core chip and put the expansion chip in for better games.
Yeah, I mean, you didn't have to take anything out of the Genesis, but you just added something onto it.
No, the Genesis was a Voltron unit in disguise, okay?
I know, but I see what you're saying.
Okay. Go 32X!
I thought that was just a memory
CD.
expansion, though. I didn't think it was an actual CPU expansion.
It was a memory expansion, but that allowed for
Better textures.
better textures, better rendering,
Okay.
because it gave you more expansion into the gameplay. It also added more button configs. Okay, even though you guys might not agree with the controller, you did add the Z buttons. You did add the 4 C's.
Okay.
So it had, and if you were in Japan, it actually had an expansion box for the bottom of it, if you remember.
Yeah.
So
Okay. P-Chan.
I'll say the Wii. The Wii brought us one step closer and a big step closer to virtual reality, where you're actually physically controlling a character or some aspect of it. It did something that no console had done before and made it way more interactive. I mean, the N64 might have given us a big graphical jump, but as far as interactivity, the Wii was the end-all be-all, even now. And though Sony and Microsoft swore up and down it was just a gimmick, they both tried to emulate it with the Move and the Kinect. And they're still trying to sell that gimmick, and Nintendo's still doing it better.
And then, correct me if I'm wrong, the 360 may have approached it in far of total sales worldwide in history, but I thought Wii was the best-selling console still to this date in history.
I believe it.
I believe it is.
I
Yeah.
thought so. So it's, yeah,
Correct.
Yeah, I'm
So
pretty sure.
I'll give it to the Wii because it did something no one else was doing, and no one had any faith in it.
Well,
And
people
after-
tried it, but they didn't even want to
I'll
touch it
tell you
again.
what it did. I'll tell you what it did. It replaced more outdated televisions than any console on the planet.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I have to give it to the Wii.
Okay. Spider.
They also innovated the Wii condom. I had to throw that out there.
Yeah. And
The Wii
wrist strap.
condom is there.
Ended more friendships in America than any other console.
Uh-oh. Jammed up.
Yeah, a little jammed up on that.
I'm all messed up, I don't know what to do.
Really?
Yes,
Really? 311.
FTW.
I'm drawing a complete blank here.
It's tough.
Yeah, it really is. I almost want to just go back and say like original NES, because it took you from what was like with the Atari, where you have the joystick and the one button, to a proper handheld controller where you have the D-pad
And
the
for the
regular
time,
buttons.
ridiculous graphics.
Yeah,
I mean, if you compared it to the-
upgrade, yeah,
Yes.
I
don't know
disagree.
the
Bit of an
Sega
upgrade
Ma-
I
between
think
Master
the
Atari
Master
and
System
Master
was
System
before
had
that.
better graphics, and it was before Nintendo.
And it had a D-pad and the 2-button layout.
Correct. And it
And the zapper.
and a better cartridge system.
And built-in games to
Damn,
the
they are-
console.
Yep.
They're pooping all over you right now.
The Sega
If
Master
we're,
System.
if we're gonna go to the pooping on everybody thing, we'll go.
Yes, please do.
Oh, God.
So for the Wii and the whole,
Here we go.
this whole gimmick that everyone's trying to copy, I played more games on my Wii using a GameCube controller than I ever did with the stupid
I
remote.
completely agree with
Most
him.
of the games that are worth playing on that system, you don't use a.
Mario.
You don't.
But you were doing something you hadn't-
Donkey Kong brought you Mario.
Right.
Period, and that was
Yeah.
Atari.
That was Atari.
That was arcade.
And Super Mario,
And
and the
technically
original
before
Mario
that,
Brothers
you-
was an Atari.
It was
game.
arcade.
I was just about to say it was an arcade game.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
it was
now-
not NES.
Now, hang on now. I will back on the NES because there was a lot of innovation in the NES that no one knew about. Did you know they had infrared wireless controllers for
Yeah.
the NES? I had a pair. They sucked, but
Right.
I had a pair.
And it did actually have an expansion port on the bottom for
It
the
did.
disc
It
system.
did,
But-
no one knew what it was for.
I will have to say it was one of
Light
the
gun.
only consoles ever released, and I'm talking the original box, not the toaster, that had a composite and audio out straight from the
Red,
console.
white, yellow. Yeah.
No, just red and
Just red,
Just
no,
red.
red and yellow.
just red and yellow.
Yeah.
Yeah. It wasn't stereo audio,
Yeah.
but
Mono. Woo!
Straight
what the Y
out
adapter was for,
the
kids.
console.
yeah.
And they don't do it to this day.
No, they don't.
PS1 had it.
Yes, you're right. PS1, PSX had it.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah.
Metal Gear Solid do.
So, all right, interesting. Hold on, give me a second to calculate that because you guys made some interesting points.
Yeah, I'm sorry to
No, that's fine.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Nintendo sold that.
I didn't
sold that configuration.
Yeah,
'cause
I
Sega
did not think about the Master System because it didn't have the proliferation that the
No,
NES
yeah,
did.
the NES freaking.
yeah, it existed.
If you were
but,
lucky enough to get
but
it, it was
nobody
fantastic.
Gave, nobody gave a shit.
No,
Yeah,
true.
no one did.
Nobody
But
cared.
It had
I have them
great games
now.
because Afterburner was built into the console. You remember that? And Hang On
do.
was.
You know the funny thing is, Sega was
they
always
had a
ahead
light
of the
gun, too.
curve. I mean, with the Master System and then the Dreamcast, they were innovating before it was.
And then they
technically-
backpedaled and gave us the regular Sega Genesis.
Yeah, they did. It was.
Yeah.
It was sad.
All right,
Sega Genesis gave us 6-button.
so we have two
And
more.
Turbo.
We have
Turbo
two more questions left. So
Okay.
we got a little bit of time too, so we can definitely get into this. If there happens to be a tie, though, I'm gonna have to come up with a tiebreaker question. But
Sudden death.
for right now,
300%.
aesthetically, what is the best looking console and or handheld? Like, what were you just like, man, that looks freaking awesome? You are.
I would have to go with the DS, the compact, where they went with the same design as they
Okay,
did.
so I want you to specify which DS, the Fat Boy, the DS Lite, or the DSi, or the DSi XL.
The was the LX was the when they went from the one face to the compact.
I'm not sure
No.
what you mean.
What?
What was
From
the one
from
with
the fat gray one to the other ones with colors?
yeah?
That's just the DS Lite.
Okay, the DS Lite when they went to the compact like they did the SP.
Right.
Aesthetically, it was gorgeous. It was compact. It flipped. It was you could put it in a purse or in a back pocket. They
I was
had
gonna say,
really
wait a
nice.
minute, how many purses did you put in?
A lot.
Womp womp.
It's a satchel.
It's a satchel.
As far as being aesthetically
What
pleasing,
there's
PJ
an
does on
SP in it.
weekends is his own business.
as far as
Do
being
you do your little turn
aesthetically
on the catwalk?
pleasing, you
On the catwalk.
douchebags,
On the
Yeah, on
catwalk.
the catwalk.
and like overall appealing,
God,
it
that is
was
an ugly woman.
the DS Lite was end all be all for me at the time. I mean,
Here's a question that's gonna help your points or hurt it. What was your favorite color combo on it?
they had the Onyx, which for me was just
Let the boys be boys.
Oh,
Give me the
fuck.
microphone before I bust in my pants.
Oh,
So
Lord.
glad I made that reference
I will
right
say
now.
the Onyx and
You're welcome,
the,
everybody. You're
The red one for me were just. It was just an impressive and sleek looking piece of hardware, and they were doing more cosmetic changes than a lot of cell phones at the time were doing.
You know what that thing looked like? A Fisher-Price building block. That's what that thing looked like. And you gonna say aesthetic?
I'm sorry, how many Final Fantasy Square Enix titles have you bought?
I couldn't tell you how many I've bought in past life.
Exactly, quack.
What does that got to do with anything?
Quack. Quack.
Well then, Cecil, you're up.
Honestly, I'll be the first one to say it. Every piece of Nintendo hardware has been hideously ugly. Okay? For the exception of, which is tasteful, not outstanding, the Wii U.
Just because it blends into your entertainment system, basically. Or...
It's aesthetically pleasing. Rounded corners. Okay. Semi-gloss finish or gloss finish, depending on which
which I think is a detractor, in my opinion.
Yeah, but most
Piano
of the time,
black can go to hell.
Well, I mean, there's a white one,
Piano white. No, I'm just kidding.
but I mean,
The majority
honestly,
keys.
yes, it may look like a regular appliance in your entertainment center or kitchen, depending on how you look at it.
But it's so
But-
long. It's like a long dog.
Because it's strong.
Try to get the friction on,
Wow.
and it's just aesthetically pleasing, and it doesn't have that stupid pulsating blue light that tells me I got an effing message.
You sure it doesn't?
Yeah, it doesn't.
Can I make an amendment and say the GameCube came with a handle?
Yeah, that's true though.
Yeah, it did. No,
If for nothing more, it came with a handle.
absolutely
so
did.
That handle though.
Dad handle.
It was accessible.
They actually made a carrying case for the GameCube.
I remember.
Yeah.
It
I don't
was
know
its own
why.
But
game.
it's its own carrying.
It was
case.
like a pail. Like it had a handle.
It was the
only thing it
original
missing
land
was a
box.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah,
just
no, I'll
missing
give you
a
that.
compartment underneath for the cables. Like,
And for nothing more, it had a hand. I just remember going like.
Side note: I got a used one from GameStop one time and it smelled like maple syrup, and I couldn't get it to stop smelling like maple syrup. Like no matter how much I
I
cleaned
feel
it,
like that's an okay problem.
It was
to have.
okay.
I was just about to
Like,
say.
I was just hungry all the time. But
I don't know why, but
And
this is pleasant.
Anywho,
okay,
But the
so
Wii
we
U, by far, even with the I thought initially was the stupid handheld tablet, which now
We all
I think,
did.
which now I think is the greatest
But
freaking controller they've
it
ever
is
made.
great, and that you should include that in the aesthetics because it's a good-looking controller
Yeah.
aside from its
Well,
bigness.
and the
its
greatest
bigness.
the greatest thing of all is it's like I'm reliving Game Gear days because if I
Yeah.
don't want to turn on the TV or the surround sound and I'm playing late at night, I just go flip.
Yep.
And sends it right to the handheld.
I wish it had a longer range with that though.
Yeah, that's-
I can't
that's
even go
the
one
old-
floor up in my house, which is kind of
I
annoying.
can't go into the kitchen without
Yeah.
losing it.
But it is a cool feature. I mean,
They did try to play it off like you could just take it with you and
Right.
keep playing.
Sure.
Yeah.
You can't
Yeah.
do that.
we're not quite there yet. Okay, so Wii U and Spider.
DSi. The
So,
DS.
no,
think
so the eye.
the
okay.
eye, not the light,
It was
not
the
where
one
it's like
right
the little glossy thing. When I got that just straight out the box, I was like, "This is a beautiful handheld." Like compared to anything else that had been on the market.
Is,
like
is that the one with the little?
No, that
No,
was
that
the
was the
original
original.
DS
That was
that
the
had that.
DSi
This one
had
was flat. It had the
little
camera
camera
on
module.
the back, but it wasn't a gloss finish. It was a matte black
The matte.
finish.
That was the matte.
Yeah, it was
finish.
matte
Yeah.
black. It had, it was rounded edges. I looked at it and I'm like, this is what I want my technology to look like.
My,
Like, it
my
was-
wife actually has the pink one, so I know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but like just straight matte black out of the box, absolutely gorgeous. I have bought another one since I got one of the Pokemon editions because I'm a Pokemon fanboy. But I have to say the DSi is easily. I like that way more than I like my 3DS. The way that it looks. Like
See, I would agree with you. The matte finish, because I just recently bought a 3DS. I love the 3DS because of I bought the XL.
yeah,
I have monkey paws, but the matte finish. I like the DSi, but I could never play it.
it's too small for
I
you.
also give a shout out if we were talking about like cross-platform. The PlayStation 1 with the screen built into it changed my life of gaming. That thing was ridiculous.
Oh, the little flip top screen.
Oh yeah, with the Xbox One itself with the LED screen or LCD screen built into it.
Yeah, but I think that wasn't done by Sony.
It was,
No, that wasn't. That was a peripheral.
That was a peripheral.
wait, are you talking about Xbox
No.
or PlayStation?
No, the PlayStation 1.
Yeah, I don't think that was first
That was-
party.
That was
No.
not first party.
I'm just
But
saying.
still, yeah, it was-
I know what you're
That
talking
was
about. It was
peripheral
great.
for
The peripheral,
PlayStation.
yeah.
Yeah.
It changed. Like I played that sucker in my mother's car. It's amazing.
All right, so we're down to the last question, assuming there's no tiebreaker. And this one was kind of touched on throughout, but really think hard on this. I'll actually give you a minute before I decide the order on all this. Best multiplayer experience.
I don't even have to think about that.
Yeah.
Oh,
neither do I.
that's tough.
But I'm just saying that.
I don't have to think about that.
All right. Well, then, you ready to roll then?
Yeah.
All right, start it off.
Smash Brothers.
No, but what
System.
Oh, GameCube.
Okay.
I mean, as far as like Double Dash, multiplayer, Mario Party, I already said Smash Brothers. As far as multiplayer, that was the game that got me. Conker's Bad Fur Day. They made the
That
port
was
of it.
that was
That was
GameCube.
No, that was
That-
Nintendo 64.
that was N64.
That was N64.
And they re-released it with multiplayer for the GameCube.
But then that's a re-release, not.
It's still a multiplayer game. He didn't specify.
All right, that's fine. I'll let you have it.
He's gonna let me have it. Like, you ain't-
Well, then I'm gonna turn it to the judge. What do you think?
I want to Google that because I'm not so sure they re-released that.
I don't think they did.
I'm pretty sure they didn't.
That was an
I
N64
feel like I get
exclusive.
5 points if it did get released for the.
You know what? I'll give you the max that I've been giving, potentially of 2, if in fact this is available.
P-Chan was like, yes.
So while you're looking that up, you want us to move on?
Yeah. So
Are
you're
you-
going with GameCube.
Correct. Now I'm feeling like that was an Xbox title I got.
I'm pretty sure it
It's
was.
not.
Yeah.
Now that I think about it, crap.
Well,
Platform, Nintendo 64, Conker's Bad Fur Day.
It was on the Xbox as well.
it might have been
There was
online.
Conquer Live and Reloaded for Xbox, but it was
That's
not on
the one.
GameCube.
It was Conker's Bad Fur Day because
Yeah.
it had multiplayer in it. Crap. Because when I moved up, that I had that in the GameCube.
So you didn't receive max for that. Doesn't mean you're going to receive the minimum, but
True.
Okay.
I will have to say the best multiplayer will have to be, and I'm sorry, I want to shit in your parade, but Nintendo 64. Hands down, 4-player. I don't have to mention Star Fox, we already mentioned it. But the one game that's not been mentioned that it was kicked off multiplayer
I know
and
exactly what you're saying.
freaking
Because I was thinking about
when
it.
I made
destroyed
this question,
everybody.
I was thinking
GoldenEye.
you got that spot because you know GoldenEye.
GoldenEye freaking set the bar.
It's console first-person shooter from that's day zero. Like that's where it
Yeah,
happened.
that is where it's at.
Yeah.
That is what kicked off. that
That's
is
why
what
there's
kicked off
Call
your
of Duty,
beloved
and that's why
Halo.
there's Halo, and
That-
that's yes.
GoldenEye started it.
Yeah.
God bless old school Rare.
Yeah.
Perfect Dark.
Perfect Dark was great. Absolutely. That's the epitome. You had bragging rights.
Yeah.
If you could, no ob job. Okay, but if you could,
No odd job, no slappies.
yeah, no slappies.
Golden Gun though for sure.
Oh hell no, paintball mode.
Yeah, I said paintball mode was the way to go.
No, but whoever's that puts the proximity mine on the ammo case needs to.
Or the toilet stall that I like to hide in.
All of a sudden you pick up the ammo and you go, and your friend starts laughing. You go, you son of, you put a remote mine on it.
My favorite was the doors that would raise when you got the proximity doors, and you put the proximity mine in front of it, so it's just going up, blows the front underneath it. I'm like, yeah.
All right, well played.
This is where order sucks because I was.
That
Was it exact. As soon as he said that, I was like, no question. N64.
It doesn't have to suck because
and
it,
GoldenEye immediately popped into my head because we hadn't mentioned it yet, and it did. It revolutionized multiplayer for FPSs, especially consoles. I guess another game that we didn't mention for multiplayer on N64, Diddy Kong Racing.
Oh yeah, that was great.
was that the first one with vehicles? Like
Yeah,
other
it had
than
multiple
carts?
vehicles because
Yeah.
you had the little hover
The
carts for some of the
airplanes.
races and the airplanes that you'd get for that. So
Poor
it
man's
expanded
Mario
out,
Kart.
and basically
We should do that for a retro review because I
they
have
took-
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they took concepts from Diddy Kong Racing, got brought into Mario Kart now
Yeah.
that weren't there before.
True.
But there was. You had Diddy Kong Racing. You had GoldenEye. You had Star Fox. The first Smash Brothers was Nintendo 64.
All the Mario parties.
First
Yeah.
Smash Brothers?
Yeah.
Yeah, the first
Yeah.
Smash Brothers was
N64.
N64.
Yeah. Super Smash Brothers.
Super
Yeah.
Smash
Super
Brothers.
Smash
sure.
Brothers.
Yeah.
I
Smash
didn't
Brothers
think about-
Melee, and then there's Smash
Yep,
Brothers Brawl.
N64. I had to think about it. I was like, wait,
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so you got that start there too.
It was. Well,
What was that other stupid game that I'm thinking? Final Fight. There's another one of those like 4-person multiplayer like kind of brawler type games that you got on N64 too.
Wasn't Fighting Force, was it?
Was Fighting Force. Good job, PJ.
I'm not gonna win this,
Yeah.
but Maurice knows random
Yeah,
crap.
that one because I remember
Right
that
there.
was a blast. to
Peach
play,
in for
too.
random information.
All right, you guys can talk amongst yourselves and
Oh,
argue. I'm gonna add up.
Pokemon Stadium.
Oh hell!
Pokemon Stadium for N64.
Yes.
I thought you were
Plug
gonna
in
say
your
Pokemon
console and you
Snap.
could throw down with your Pokemon in 3D versus other players.
That was a revolution.
Ah,
And you put your own Pokemon because you could use the adapter on.
yes, to use
a
your
peripheral.
own.
The
that we
freaking
never talked
adapters
about,
on the
yeah.
back of the controller, the
You could
Rumble
put-
packs, the freaking Game
Yeah.
Boy loaders, and what else was in
You
there?
could do Dodrio mode and play your Pokemon in 3 times speed. But I'm talking about like being able to just sit down multiplayer and throw down your Pokemon versus another player's Pokemon together on the same screen.
It was-
Not like you watching a battle, them watching a battle, but together 3D Pokemon
with no
fighting
link cable.
no link cable on the screen. Pokemon Stadium.
Yeah,
for
no,
N64.
I completely.
Boom.
I completely
Next year, we're
back
gonna talk
that.
about Pokemon Snap as if it was a good game.
I love Pokemon Snap. Pre-fatal frame, man. Pre-fatal frame.
There you go. There you go.
Peach-Hand is never.
I'm
gonna
not
win
saying
one of
it's the
these
best game ever,
I'm-
but it's enjoyable for me at least.
I might as well stop participating in this crap. I'm never gonna win these, ever.
All right, and timeout. I'm gonna go check and make sure our other scorekeeper is still keeping score.
Oh,
'Cause
okay.
we're gonna combine.
You wanna
She's like
converse
Germany.
her.
We all got zeros.
So,
so have you been keeping?
The,
Deutschland.
no.
We have our
Before we anger
our non-partial,
the
not really
German.
hidden judge.
Our non-partial, not really. Which we will introduce. It's been a long time fan of the Blue Bomber is our
Yes.
special guest judge.
Correct.
And let me read this. So, I have like all these points tallied up.
Okay.
All right. She says I gave out more points originally, but then had to give out negative points for stupidity. So hers was like a rolling scale.
Oh, I'm screwed.
much more. It was much more critical than I gave.
That sounds
But she
about
gave
right.
a flat 3 points to Spider, 4 to Peach-Hand, and 5 to Cecil.
Woohoo!
Yeah.
All right, so
I knew that was coming. She likes Cecil way more than either of us.
Hey,
see that,
wait a minute
right?
now.
Yeah, no,
Wait a
for
minute.
real.
all right, so
I
Like,
got-
as a person, she
Oh,
likes you
oh,
more
okay.
than she likes either of us.
Thank you, Blue
So-
Bomber.
Am I wrong?
Never giving her sugar again.
that almost got you into second.
Oh!
So Peach-Hand after that
Wow.
is 13.5.
Oh, I know.
Bottom of
Alright.
the barrel.
So in second place, that puts Spider at 14. So it was 0.5 away.
Ooh, that's
man.
close.
And Cecil takes the win with 19
Oh!
points.
Oh, witness!
Wow, we.
Woo!
That was
Wait. Let me show the domo in the stash.
so that
What's
was
a mustache ride?
one of the things that I really wanted to say, but I didn't want to interject. Under, let's see, game library. Since we weren't doing virtual console and it was literally what the hardware can do, I would have absolutely said DS, the regular DS, not 3DS. So any of the variants of DS that could handle Game Boy Advance carts. Because you had all the DS games and all the Game Boy Advance games.
Yeah.
So you lost the Game Boy Color and regular games, but you
kept
got the
all
better
cool-
versions that came out on
Who's
Advance.
playing all that anyway?
So it that's kind of the perfect storm. Like people usually keep their DSs just for that reason.
Because you could do
Yeah.
you could play the advanced games on
Right.
them still. Yeah, I completely forgot
So-
about that.
I
You know.
am never winning one of these. I am.
Yeah,
You could still do
you
that on the
will
lights
win,
too.
you
can't
will
No,
win.
you couldn't. They took that away on
So,
Did
The
they?
no, the
Well,
light still had the
the
bottom
lights still
Advance.
did,
It didn't
yeah.
take the full size Nintendo Game Boy carts, but it took the Advance.
Yeah.
The only time it went away was I think with
No,
3DS.
the DSi.
Oh, the I took
The
got
eye,
rid of
yeah,
it.
you can't do it on the eye.
Okay.
all right, gents. Well, I do believe we have to wrap it
That's
up because
it.
this has been our longest show to date. Well,
In the new
in the
format.
new format.
Yeah. We can all talk about Nintendo for a million hours. So.
Oh, absolutely.
Million hours.
I do believe we're going to have a future show, a future retro show of Diddy Kong Racing.
Oh yeah, we're putting that on the list.
Absolutely.
For sure. So, all right.
All right, well, thank you for joining Circle of Jerks.
You sound so
I
angry when he
am
says it.
Cecil Blade.
I am upset.
Peach-Hand. He means he's
I am
Peach-Hand.
Cliff.
I'm Spider.
And this is the Ninja Legion. Check us out at theninjalegion.com and all of our social media sites. Good night.
Bitter. Bitter.